Hello, hello! My name is YMI Online, and welcome back to Slay the Spire. Now, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and let's get right into it. So, today, I'll be showing you how to read the map, which might sound dumb. I'm sure most of you can read a map just fine, but, well, I just thought it seemed like the next step. And I hope by the end of this probably short video, you will think it is definitely a dumb guide. The goal of this is to make you think it's dumb, because you'll think, why would I ever need that? Now, in my last How to Slay the Spire, I think I kind of briefly explained each of these things, but what I'm going to be going over this time is more exactly what you can expect in some of these, some thought you should put into how to plan your path. Like, all these would be fights. You might not want to go for all fights. You might want to look ahead at what you're going to be coming up to. When I'm at the higher levels of difficulty there, I will oftentimes plan out my entire path from the second I see the map before I do anything else. So, the most common thing you'll see are these normal rooms, enemies. They're just basic enemies. You get a fight, you get a bit of money, sometimes a potion, and a card choice. So, they're standard rewards, nothing too special and nothing too bad. Nothing bad, nothing good really, just, regular old fight. But you do want to make sure you get a few of them because you want to see cards. Cards are important if you want to take out any of the harder fights. Because if you remember, you only start with a very basic deck, and if you try and take a whole bunch of strikes and defends to the final boss, you're going to have a tough time. So, while these normal fights don't give you a whole lot, they give you some very essential and basic things. Now, the next most common thing you'll see are these question mark spaces. And these, well, as the legend over here says, they are unknown. It also says you may encounter monsters, treasures, shops, or an event, an entirely different thing. Now, each level, I guess, has different events as well as monsters and things like that you can fight. And you will learn all of them. I will not be going over each and every single one in this video because I'm lazy. But most of the events will get you either a curse or a relic, or some of them will give you something special, like it might you might get to take a card out of your deck, or you just might randomly take 20 damage, or you might just randomly heal 30 damage. They can all be all kinds of things. I personally do like to go for them because they kind of have a high risk and high reward. Well, medium risk, medium reward. As it is random, I could just get another fight. Okay, well that's nothing special. I could get a shop. Okay, that's alright if I have any money to spend anyways. Or I could get an event that's gonna let me win the game from there because of whatever it gives me. So it's very random, so you don't want to make your entire path all these question marks, because you'll never know what you're gonna get. It'll be hard to plan out exactly what you do, and the problem with it is, as I mentioned, these enemy spaces will always give you a card choice, letting you make your deck better and better and better. These question mark spaces do not. So you might be trying to go for all of them and be like, yeah, I got this cool relic, and it gives me like extra strength, and You get all the way to the top and then you realize, oh yeah, I went to all these question mark spaces and I got maybe 2 things out of it, and I don't have anything to fight the big bad guy with. Now, the highest risk and highest reward, arguably, are these elite combats. Now, elite combats, will it give me a tip? It will. Elites are powerful foes, and defeating them will give you a relic. Now, relics are powerful. Relics are these little bows. Go in this little bow here, and they can range from giving you extra strength, to letting you draw more cards, to reviving you if you die, or 100 other things. Actually, I don't think 100. I don't think there's that many relics, but you know, you get the point. Now, these elites, as I just mentioned, are very high risk, high reward. So these normal fights, you can expect to maybe lose probably 5 or less HP or hit points, health, whatever you want to call it, on average. Some of them you'll have terrible luck and you'll take a lot more, but ideally you shouldn't take more than like 5 to 10 damage in a fight. These elites, on the other hand, are significantly harder, and I wouldn't be surprised if you lost half your health fighting one. And each of the levels has 3 different elites. On this first level, there is the Sentinels. It's 3 enemies who will put cards into your deck, making it worse and diluting it, and hitting you on and off constantly. They will always be hitting you. Now, that can be a hard fight if it's one of your first elites without you having hardly gotten any cards, because you'll have no way to hit multiple of them, and you'll have, well, worse cards to choose from when you get them. The next elite, well, I shouldn't say the next, another elite that you can fight is the Gremlin Knob. And he's a big angry lad who gets angrier every time you play a skill card. So if you look at your deck and you realize, I have 7 skill cards and 5 attack cards, you might think, well, maybe I don't want to go fight him because most of my deck is skills, and the more of those I play, the harder he's gonna be to fight. And he also is constantly hitting you. And last but not least, we have the Lagavulin, who I don't know how to describe him, but he is asleep in his shell for the first 3 turns of combat, and then he wakes up and he just consistently hits you for 20 damage, and eventually he will debuff you and make your attacks and defense weaker. Now, I wanted to tell you all this because when you're planning out your path, you're going to want to keep in mind, okay, which of these 3 can I fight? Which of them will just kill me? Because the Lagavulin, you might have a lot of setup to do. You might have some powers to play that'll make the rest of your fight super easy. Sure, that means you'll do great against him. But then if you have to fight the Gremlin Knob, who just comes out hard and fast swinging, well, you know, he might kill you. And that's something you want to consider when you're trying to plan your path. Now, these campfires are a bit rarer, and they're some of the most important spots, as these will let you either heal yourself or upgrade a card. And as I mentioned in my last video, upgrading is good. Let's take our strike here. It goes from 6 damage to 9 damage. That's a 50% increase. And that's only one of your basic cards. Some of the more powerful cards you can get even better if they're upgrades. So, upgrading cards and healing are both important. So you want to try and make sure you have 1 or 2 of these rest along your path. especially if you're fighting a lot of elites, because if you're fighting a lot of elites, let's say you want to go fight this one, and then this one, and then this one, and if you want to do that, I would try and get this rest site here so you can heal in between them. That way you don't just lose, 60 health between these two and then get up to this one with 10 health. Maybe you even manage to scrape by and then you get to the boss with like 3 health. So it is important to have these, but you do always get at least one right before the boss in case you need to heal or if you want to upgrade or anything like that. Then we have these chests in the middle of the map. These are always, well, I assume they're always halfway through. I guess I've never really counted to see if they're halfway through, but they're about halfway through. You always get a chest, and these chests will have just a free relic for you. And that's it. You will always get one no matter how you go. And congratulations, you're the proud new owner of something shiny, I hope. And then we also have merchants. Now, merchants are where you can finally spend all that gold you've been collecting from all these fights you've been going through. At merchants, you'll see a handful of cards. I believe it's 8. Yes, 8 cards. As well as 3 relics and 3 potions, and you can also take a card out of your deck there. And cards, you could probably, as long as you have maybe 150 or less, you can probably afford any card he might have on offer. You're definitely going to want, I'd say, at least 125 gold to afford some of the cheaper relics, and closer to 350 if you want to get some of the more expensive ones. The potions, again, anywhere from about 50 to 100 gold will probably buy a potion for you. And then the card removal service costs 75 gold the first time you do it, and then it costs an additional 25 gold each time after that. And that persists through the shop. So if I go to this shop, spend 75 gold and remove a card, and go to this one, that one will cost 100 gold, and you can only do it once per shop. And then each floor, the very last room you go into is the boss fight. And you do get to know which boss you're fighting when you see the map for the first time, and that's something else you're going to want to plan around. Now, the first floor has 3 different bosses. Well, they all have 3 different bosses. The first floor has the Hexaghost, who is a giant floating ghost, I guess, who puts burns in your deck, which deal damage to you when you draw them, and, you don't get whatever card you would have drawn otherwise, and he does a pretty good amount of damage, but I guess unique thing about him is that he actually does damage based on how much health you start that fight with. So if I have 70 health, his first attack against me will do something like 8 times 6 damage, so I'm bad at math, 48 damage or so. If I come in with 15 health though, he's gonna do 1 by 6. And that's, if I do divide by 2, carry that would be 6 damage, so that's not that bad. There's also the Guardian, who switches from offense to defense when he takes a certain amount of damage. So he starts out with a fairly hefty attack, about 20 damage, I think. And if you deal 50 damage, no, if you deal 30 damage back to him, he goes into a defensive mode where he gets some block, and anytime you hit him after that, you actually take damage back. And his is kind of about balancing the two. If you hit him in the middle of him trying to attack you, he'll stop his attack. Then last and probably the biggest one, is the slime boss. Now, he will just put a bunch of slime in your deck, so you won't draw the cards you're looking for. Then on his second turn, he won't do anything, and on his third turn is when he'll finally hit you. But he actually starts with 140 health, depending on the difficulty you're playing on, and he will split into smaller slimes once you get him to half that health. So if you deal 70 damage and exactly get him to 70 health, he will then split into 2 different slimes with 70 health each. If you get him down to 52 health, he'll split into 2 slimes with 52 health each. So it's a good idea to get him as weak as possible before you split him into multiple versions of himself. That will also stop him from doing his big attack, because on the third turn, he hits for, I believe it's 32 damage, which is not exactly easy to block. Now, I don't want to make this video too super long, so quickly I'll just go over some basic strategies you should keep in mind when you're trying to figure out your path. So like I said, you want to try and right as soon as you can look at the map, just take a look at the map and kind of decide what you want to do. Now obviously that can change, you know, you might get to this elite thinking you're going to fight him and this other elite and this other guy and this big dude over there and that guy. You might get to this first one and, you know, it's gone terribly wrong and you have like 5 health left, and you might think, okay, well, maybe I should go to this rest and then go to that rest and heal up some. So when you're planning your path, make sure you always have some room to change. You know, here, if you're going up here and you set your sights on, I'm fighting this guy, and I'm fighting this guy, and I'm fighting this guy, and I'm going this exact way, just be ready to change your plan based on what's happened. That is probably the most important piece of advice I could give you. And plan as well ahead as you can, considering you know exactly where you're going. You don't know exactly what you'll be fighting, usually, but knowing exactly where you're going, you should be able to use that to help you plan. Now, as I mentioned at the start, you're going to want to try and include some of these basic enemy fights because you're going to want to look at cards. Or, forgetting that, you could try and go to a shop earlier on and buy a very good card or two, and that'll help get you through these tougher fights. These rest, you might not care if you get any super early like this, because you probably won't have taken too much damage, and you don't really have a card you want to specifically upgrade yet. So, rest that might be right before this chest, like this one, or afterwards, those are higher priority as you'll either have taken damage or have something to upgrade at that point. Now, relics are very powerful. They can really completely change how you're going to play the game. And if you play only getting one per floor from this free one you get without fighting any elites at all, you'll probably make the game a lot harder on yourself than you need to. So in that case, you want to try and fight at least one elite, I'd say. I prefer to fight as many as possible. If this were me, I would absolutely be fighting all 3 of these elites. And then, as far as going to these question mark spaces, try not to go to every question mark space, but if you want to hit a few, go for it. You know, I can't tell you what's in there. On some of the floors, there might be a specific event you might want. For example, on the next level, there's an event that gives you bites. It makes you into a vampire, so it replaces all of your strikes and gives you a lot of bites instead. They deal a bit more damage and they heal you. you might be really wanting that event. I don't know why you might particularly want it so much, but you might really like it. In that case, you might want to go to a lot of question marks so that you can get them. So keep something like that in mind too. I would say, if I were going to go on this path, I would start on this left choice here. Starting with this fight, you do always start with a fight. Go to this early shop. If I got a particularly good or powerful card, I might go to these question marks. But probably I would go here to the shop, then to this fight and this fight, get this question mark. Oh, excuse me. Fight this elite, this combat, this elite. Now, if I took a lot of damage from this one, or if I hadn't found a card yet, or something like that, then I might go off to this rest before fighting this elite. Well, not before, but instead of fighting this elite. Or, let's say I went through all of these and I didn't find a single thing I might want, I might even skip this first elite and go to this rest instead. You know, fight this elite, or go to the rest, get your chest, fight here, and from here, I might want to decide, okay, did those first two elites go good? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, continue on to this right path. You can either go to this campfire or this question mark. Personally, I'd probably go for the campfire, but as I said, it's up to you. Now, if these first two elites went terribly and the answer is no, you can't fight another one, continue on this left path and get a couple extra fights, a couple of extra question marks, all the way till you get to the boss. And as I mentioned, this is the Hexaghost. He actually does less damage if you have less health. So, in that case, I might only have, say, 25 health by the time I get to this campfire. And, you know, things might be looking a bit dicey. But if I heal and go up to, 60 health, he's going to be doing a lot more damage. He'll probably get rid of all the health I just gained anyway, so I may as well not heal in that case. And all the bosses, after you beat them, they will heal you to full health. Until you get to a higher difficulty, at least. They will heal you to full health. At higher levels, they will just heal you to mostly full health. Now, I'm an absolutely awful person, really, to listen to for advice. But I hope that's helped you a little bit in your slaying of the Spire. And, yeah. Maybe I'll do another one of these eventually, when I know how to explain things to people. But for now, I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you sometime soon.